What's up, a Cinema Shogun here, and I am beginning to believe that Amazon has literally zero to no faith at all in the Rings of Power being a successful show. Why, you ask? Well, you see, I just got back from a little mini vacation, and whenever I'm in a new city, I always have to take the time out to visit every single comic shop, toy store, collectible store in town. I go to the Barnes and Nobles, the Books A Millions, the Walmarts, the Targets, because I'm kind of a nerd and I really like collecting action figures and toys. You know, I'm actually one of those fans that actually likes the properties that I'm into, and I actually spend my hard-earned money on products. And it's weird that fans like myself aren't the fans that are being catered to anymore. Now, they only cater to these shows to the woke crowds who literally have zero money. I have never seen any of these woke idiots at a Toys R Us, at a GameStop, with just arms full of new action figures and toys, because they don't really care about these franchises at all. They only care about the new message that is put within these woke-ass TV shows. So, as I'm out and about and I'm shopping, I was thinking, well, I've been talking about the Rings of Power on my channel lately, and the show is like right around the corner from coming out. So why in the hell is there no Rings of Power merchandise anywhere that I look? And then it dawned on me, well, maybe because the folks over at Amazon know that people wouldn't buy the products. I mean, be honest. Do you want an action figure of this guy? Do you want to buy an action figure of a reimagined character that you already knew and loved for years before it was butchered in the name of woke politics? I had to go to almost 24 stores, comic shops, toy stores. I went to Walmarts, Targets, everywhere. Nothing. Zero. Zilch. Nada. And then I was like, well, okay. The Rings of Power is loosely based on a book series. I mean, it almost has nothing to do with the Lord of the Rings at this point, but it's supposed to be about the Lord of the Rings and about Tolkien's lore. So maybe, if anywhere is going to have the Rings of Power merchandise, it would be Barnes and Nobles, Books A Million, some type of bookstore. So I headed on over there, and guess what I found? Absolutely nothing. At a freaking bookstore, first I go to Books A Million. Not only did they have the Rings of Power merchandise, I didn't see any of the Lord of the Rings stuff anywhere. And then I go to Barnes and Nobles. Now, Books A Million, it's always kind of, at least the ones around me, they're always kind of all over the place. But Barnes and Nobles seems to have their stuff together. Like, everything has its own nice little section. And I noticed that Barnes and Nobles had a huge Harry Potter section. They had all types of Fantastic Beast stuff, even though the Fantastic Beast movies are literally garbage and no one really cares about them. They had its own section. You know what section they did not have? They didn't have a Lord of the Rings section. They didn't have a Tolkien section. And that was weird, because for all of these years, whenever I go into Barnes and Nobles, and I go in there a lot, there was always some Lord of the Rings section. At the very least, they would have like an end cap on the end of one of their bookshelves, and it would have all of J.R.R. Tolkien's books. But they didn't even have that. And I'm like, what in the world? We are a few weeks away from this show coming out. And they did not even have, I get it. We know the Rings of Power is going to be garbage, but maybe you would capitalize on this time to push the actual tokens, hey, I guess if you are interested in the Rings of Power, maybe you should be interested in what Tolkien really viewed his world like. You know what I mean? But no, it's like they're not even trying to capitalize off the hype of the Rings of Power to sell the Lord of the Rings merchandise, because there is no hype for the Rings of Power. It's a sad state. It's like, not only was there no Lord of the Rings stuff, there was less Lord of the Rings stuff now than there has ever been. And we're right on the brink of one of the most expensive TV shows, or literally the most expensive TV show of all time. and they pumped so much money into the show. How are they going to get that money back? I mean, you really got to think about it from a business standpoint. I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I'm not going to pretend to be. I'm not here to crunch numbers, but when you really think about it, the math ain't math in here. You spent all this money on this show, and I would think like, okay, maybe you won't make the money back from people watching the show, but you'll make money back from, selling products. You have to understand, folks, a lot of the movies and TV shows and cartoons that we grew up absolutely loving, they were nothing more than commercials to sell products. They were nothing more than a basically 2-hour long advertisement to sell us toys and video games. Ninja Turtles, that was all about selling toys. He-Man, that was all about selling toys. Hell, the 90s Batman movies, everyone likes to complain about them. They're so corny. It didn't matter how bad those movies were, because at the end of the day, they sold a boatload of toys because of those movies. So even if they couldn't make a lot of money from people signing up on Amazon to watch this show, surely they would make some profit off of the products. But there is no products, because it doesn't even seem like they care about making a profit on this show. If you have Amazon, you already have Amazon. No one's going to be like, oh, the Rings of Power is coming out. Let me finally get Amazon. In fact, I'm about to go so far as to canceling my Amazon account on the same day that they drop this TV show. And I will watch this show and I will review it for you all, but I will set the high seas to do so, because I am not supporting the show a single bit. And no one else is, and Amazon knows that. That's why there's no products. When The Lord of the Rings came out, it was a crazy moment. When that first trilogy came out, you couldn't go anywhere without Lord of the Rings being somewhere. You go to McDonald's, they had like the light up glass cups. I remember I had one. You go to the toy store, they got swords, they got shields, they got bow and arrows. They had several different action figure lines at the same time. And that's when you know a franchise is being successful, when they can have multiple toy lines at the same time. So when it came to the Lord of the Rings, you had, figures in this scale, then you had figures in this scale. And then remember they had like the miniature figures, and you could get like miniature castles. And I don't think there was like a game behind it. Like it wasn't Warhammer or anything like that. But you had like your little Lord of the Rings castles and your figures, and I always daydreamed about having them. I wanted to create my own scenes in my own little Middle Earth so bad. And they had all those little buildings and catapults and orcs, and it was just so cool. But of course, I was a kid back then, and I couldn't get everything that I wanted. Now I'm an adult, and I can afford this stuff. But unfortunately, we get nothing but shit TV shows every single time I turn around, and I no longer want to buy any of this stuff. They could be making so much money from me and from people like me and from people like you all, but they don't want it. It's almost as if the money isn't as important to them as we think it is. I'm going to tell you all something that no one else is saying on YouTube. A lot of people believe that this woke stuff will fade away and it will go away eventually when these companies realize that they aren't making money. People believe that when these movie companies realize, hey, more and more people are no longer coming to see our movies and this, that, and the third, that eventually all of this woke nonsense will go away and will come back to normal. I hate to break it to you folks. I don't want to sound negative here, but I don't see it happening. At this point, the message has become more important than the product. It's become more important than the profit. It's become more important than the money. These movie companies, the big ones, and these big streaming companies, they have other stuff backing them. Disney will take a lot of losses on their movies because they know at the end of the day they have a theme park that people are still going to go to. It doesn't matter how bad the movies get. It doesn't matter how many people stop going to see them. People are still going to go to the park. You're still going to buy that OG Disney merchandise because you loved Disney before it went totally woke. And they're still going to make money off of you watching ABC or ESPN or whatever the hell else they own. They own damn near everything. And when it comes to Amazon, do you really think they care about making a profit from the show? You would think that they would if they were smart. But I'm having a hard time believing that all of these people in Hollywood are just completely dumbasses that have no clue that people don't want to see this stuff. The message is more important than the money at this point. They are willing to take losses after loss after loss after loss if it means that they are chasing you down anywhere you can go to hide from them. You thought you could hide in your little Lord of the Rings fandom? Nope, they're coming for you. They already took out Star Wars. They're taking out Marvel as we speak. They're taking out DC. Now they're coming for Lord of the Rings. And it's a sad sight to see. It's a very sad sight to see. And the fact that I can go out here and I could see that there is not a single drop of the Rings of Power merchandise on shelves, that lets me know that they don't even care. Like, the only way they could really, really make money from this show is if people bought products from the show. If they merchandise the hell out of this show, but they haven't because they know it would just be peg warmers. You would see these action figures sitting on shelves for millennia. It would be like Finn. There's still Finn action figures from The Force Awakens sitting at my local Target and Walgreens as we speak. Nothing against Finn. I thought he was the best part of the Disney trilogy. But that's the reality. These companies realize that. Kenobi. I don't mean to get into Star Wars here, but the Kenobi show just came out not too long ago. There wasn't a single drop of merchandise for that either. These companies are realizing that people aren't buying the merchandise. More and more people continue to fall off and no longer watch these shows and movies, and they don't care. They don't care. They want to stall you out. They want to create a new audience of woke consumers who don't care about anything. They don't even care about a good product as long as you preach to them. As long as you hit the bullet points of diversity and wokeness, that's all they care about. And then they'll go on Twitter and talk about how great of a show it was because this person reminded me of myself and I could see myself on the screen. I'm so tired of hearing these stupid people talk about this type of stuff, man. And it's so obvious that they aren't real fans. These people have invaded fandom. They have invaded fandom. And it's a sad sight to see. I miss the day when a movie would come out or a TV show and you'd be excited for it. And you would go spend your hard-earned money on products from the show because you were a fan. And it made you feel happy. Now I can't feel happy buying half of this stuff. I'm literally going back to buying retro toys and stuff because I don't even want to support any of these new franchises that are out there because these new franchises are about the message. And it's weird how these shows and movies, they went from basically promoting, merchandise from the shows and movies to only promoting a message because it became more important to get the message across as opposed to getting your money. And I'm not saying, I want you all to understand, The Lord of the Rings is not an example of that. The Lord of the Rings wasn't created to sell toys or anything like that. That's not what I'm trying to say. It's very different. However, it's a very marketable product. It's a very marketable franchise. People love The Lord of the Rings. All across the world, people love The Lord of the Rings. And when you're someone like myself and you've sat here and watched everything you know and love be destroyed, it's hard to just sit here and continue to watch it. I want you all to understand that I am not the biggest Lord of the Rings fan in the world. I will not pretend to be. I am not an aficionado. Some of you all watching this video right now know tons more about Lord of the Rings than I do. It wasn't the main thing that I was into as a fan or as a nerd or as someone in the pop culture. I was mainly a Marvel guy, and then Star Wars, and then DC. And Lord of the Rings was always in there, but it wasn't my main thing. But Lord of the Rings was always something that I held on a different pedestal than everything else. Don't get me wrong, it might not have been my main interest, but there was something sacred and almost like holy about Lord of the Rings for me. Like messing with the Lord of the Rings is like messing with the Bible. And I don't even mean to get religious here. I'm not a very religious person. It doesn't even matter what religion you belong to. Just think about someone coming in and messing up your holy book or whatever. That's what this feels like. Because for some reason, even though it hasn't been my favorite, thing in fandom, if you will, I always held the Lord of the Rings higher up on this pedestal above everything else. So when I see stuff like Moon Knight get destroyed, it's like, damn, man, Moon Knight, I actually liked Moon Knight. But when I see them coming for Lord of the Rings, it's almost like forbidden territory. Like, you know better than this. This is stuff that's been here for years and years and years, and it shouldn't be tampered with. And if someone wants to make TV shows and stuff like that, cool. But do it with the right intentions. I am not the harshest critic on earth. If I know that someone is actually trying and they're actually passionate about the product that they're making and they're actually, passionate about the source material, then I will be way more forgiving than most people on YouTube. But when I know that you're coming into a show with your only intention of coming into the show is to destroy it and to fill it with SJW wokeness, then I have to stand up and say something. And I feel like this is our last frontier. This is our last stand. Marvel is in the process of getting absolutely obliterated. Star Wars has been destroyed. Star Wars has been burnt to the ground, and Disney is currently dancing all over the canon, dancing on the corpses of what we used to know as Star Wars. DC, it's always like, the comics are super woke. You never know what you're going to get with the movies, but you know there's like an internal battle on how woke they want to make those movies. And here we have Lord of the Rings, our last stand. What I want you all to understand here is, if they take Lord of the Rings, if they ruin the Lord of the Rings, then we really have nothing left. Like I've stated 1,000 times, Marvel, DC, and Star Wars, that's gone. They just made a new Halo series that was absolute garbage. They're in the process of ruining that. You can't even play Halo the same anymore. They already got Star Trek. I always hated Star Trek, but Star Trek is out of there. Doctor Who, I never watched it a day in my life. It's out of there. So I've sat back and watched as they destroyed franchises that I never even cared about. But I feel those people's pain. And I feel like we all have to come together. Marvel fans, DC fans, Star Wars fans, Star Trek fans, you name it. Everyone needs to come together here. It's like, the final battle in the Return of the King. This is our final battle against evil. It really, really is. And I feel like here we can make a statement. I see the passion within this fan base. I see other people who are passionate about just making sure that they don't ruin this. Like I told you all earlier in the video, I am not the biggest Lord of the Rings fan on earth. However, I do have a love for it. And I have a love for just pop culture in general. And I've seen everything I know and love be destroyed, so I know how it's going to feel for the die-hard Tolkien fans when these people come in and mucky everything up. I know how it's going to feel. It will forever put a bad taste in your mouth. I can tell you personally, I cannot even watch the original Star Wars trilogy anymore and get the same amount of enjoyment from it because Star Wars has almost just been totally ruined for me. But it's evident that Amazon is not confident in Rings of Power, and I don't even think they care that if they make money or not. There was nothing anywhere. Go to Barnes & Noble's, every bookstore, nothing anywhere. In fact, at Barnes & Noble's, they had one Tolkien book, out of the entire store, one. And here we are 2 weeks or 3 weeks, however many weeks away from the Rings of Power, one Tolkien book in the entire store. Not because everyone was buying them up, but because everyone hates Lord of the Rings right now because of the Rings of Power. But I bought this so I could brushing up on my history so I could do a better job at dissecting this show and just crapping on the woke Amazon writers. And while I was at a comic shop, I picked this up. Now, don't get me wrong. This has nothing to do with the Rings of Power. This line of figures was not put out for the Rings of Power or alongside the Rings of Power. This is just a little line of figures that Diamond Select has been putting out. I got the Gandalf and I had to get him because they actually did a great job on this line. It's a rather newer line, but it's not brand spanking new. Like this didn't just come out yesterday, but it's rather new. But it goes to show that they know they could still sell Lord of the Rings products. They just know that they can't make money off the Rings of Power. Because why would you have these figures coming out, around the same time as the Rings of Power coming out, but no the Rings of Power merchandise? It's really sad. And you would think that these people would hop on that opportunity. Hey, the Rings of Power is coming out. Maybe let's, at least if there's no merchandise yet, let's peddle our old Lord of the Rings merchandise to everyone. But they know there's no interest there. There's literally no interest there. The only interest I see is people all coming together to crap on this show. But I was happy to find this and to find something, The Lord of the Rings, to just make me feel like, hey, we still have somewhat of this franchise left, you know, and hopefully we could fight back to make sure that they never do something like this to anyone's franchises ever again. But I want you to let me know, have you seen any of the Rings of Power merchandise anywhere you go? Let me know down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all on the next video.